In the heart of Rwanda, nestled between the rolling hills and misty valleys, there was a village called Kibungo. The village was known for its fertile lands, where bananas grew as tall as trees, and the air was sweet with the scent of coffee blossoms. But Kibungo was also known for something else. It was ruled by King Muntu, a man whose greed was as vast as the skies above. King Muntu had a palace made of the finest stones, with walls adorned in vibrant kitenge fabrics and courtyards filled with sculptures carved from rare woods. He had mountains of gold, and his storerooms overflowed with cowrie shells, which were the currency of the land. Yet, no matter how much he had, it was never enough. He taxed the villagers heavily, taking their cattle, crops, and even their handcrafted jewelry, all to add to his hoard of wealth. One day, as the dry season stretched on, the village faced a terrible drought. The once lush fields turned to dust, and the rivers shrank to mere trickles. The villagers grew desperate, their children hungry, their animals weak. They went to the palace, hoping their king would show mercy and share his wealth to help them survive. But King Muntu only laughed, his voice echoing off the stone walls of his grand hall. "Why should I give away what is mine?" he sneered. "You must work harder. If you cannot survive, it is not my concern." The villagers left the palace with heavy hearts. But among them was an old woman named Nyiramachabeli, who was known for her wisdom and cunning. She had seen many seasons come and go, and she knew that greed like the king's could only lead to ruin. So, she hatched a plan. Nyiramachabeli made her way to the palace, where she requested an audience with the king. Amused by the sight of the frail old woman, King Muntu granted her request. "What do you want, old one?" he asked, a smirk playing on his lips. "Your Majesty," Nyiramachabeli began, bowing low, "I have heard of a treasure even greater than all the gold and riches in your palace. It is said to be hidden deep in the mountains of the west, in the land of 1,000 hills. But only the one who gives away all they own can claim it." King Muntu's eyes widened at the thought of a treasure greater than his own. "All I own?" he asked, frowning. "Yes, your Majesty," Nyiramachabeli confirmed. "But think of the wealth that awaits you. It will be yours and yours alone." The king, blinded by his greed, agreed without hesitation. He declared that he would give away all his wealth to the villagers. At first, the people of Kibungo were shocked, but soon, joy spread through the village as King Muntu's riches were distributed among them. Cattle were returned, granaries were filled, and everyone received a share of the king's gold. With nothing left, King Muntu set off on his journey to the mountains of the west, guided by Nyiramachabeli. For days, they walked through the dense forests and over rocky hills, with the old woman leading the way. Finally, they reached a secluded spot high in the mountains, where the land was untouched by man. "Where is this treasure?" King Muntu demanded, his patience worn thin. Nyiramachabeli smiled and pointed to the ground beneath their feet. "Here," she said simply. The king looked down, seeing nothing but rocks and dirt. "You have tricked me," he roared. But Nyiramachabeli shook her head. "No, your Majesty. You now possess a treasure more valuable than gold. Look around you. You have given away your wealth, but in return, your people will now thrive. The land will be fertile, the rivers will flow, and Kibungo will be prosperous once more. This is your true wealth." King Muntu realized too late that his greed had cost him everything. He had been so focused on hoarding riches that he had forgotten the true value of his kingdom, his people. With nothing left, he was forced to live in the mountains, far from the village he once ruled, while Kibungo flourished under the leadership of a new, wise leader. And so, the villagers of Kibungo lived in peace and prosperity, never forgetting the lesson of the greedy king who gave away his wealth. King Muntu, now stripped of all his possessions, wandered the mountains aimlessly. The once powerful ruler found himself alone, his fine robes reduced to tatters, his jeweled crown long abandoned. Days turned into weeks, and the harsh mountain winds and cold nights took their toll on the former king. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the rugged landscape, Muntu stumbled upon a small, hidden cave. Weary and hungry, he decided to take refuge there for the night. As he settled down on the cold stone floor, he noticed something glimmering in the darkness. Curiosity piqued, he crawled closer and discovered an old, weathered chest partially buried in the earth. With trembling hands, Muntu opened the chest, expecting to find riches beyond his wildest dreams. But inside, there were no gold coins, no jewels, only a single ancient scroll. Disappointed, he unrolled the scroll, revealing a map and a series of cryptic instructions. The map seemed to lead deeper into the mountains, to a place marked only with a symbol resembling the sun. The instructions, written in a language Muntu barely recognized, spoke of a hidden valley where the sun never set, a place of eternal light and unimaginable treasures. But the path was treacherous, filled with dangers that only the pure of heart could overcome. Muntu hesitated. The promise of treasure still tugged at his heart, but he remembered Naira Machabeli's words about true wealth. Yet, with nothing left to lose, he decided to follow the map. Perhaps, he thought, this treasure would redeem him, or at least give him a chance to reclaim some of his lost glory. The next morning, Muntu set out on his journey, following the map's winding path through dense forests and over craggy peaks. The days were long, and the nights were cold, but he pressed on, driven by a mix of desperation and hope. As he journeyed, Muntu encountered various creatures of the mountains, some kind, others hostile. There was the wise old owl who gave him cryptic advice, the mischievous monkey who tried to steal the map, and the great lion who offered protection in exchange for Muntu's promise to change his ways. Each encounter tested Muntu's resolve, and slowly, the former king began to reflect on his past actions. One day, Muntu came across a river so wide and fierce that it seemed impossible to cross. The water roared as it crashed against the rocks, and there was no bridge in sight. As Muntu stood on the riverbank, pondering his next move, an old fisherman appeared. He was a thin, wiry man with a weathered face and a calm demeanor. "Looking to cross, are you?" the fisherman asked, his voice barely audible over the sound of the rushing water. Muntu nodded, showing the fisherman the map. "I must reach the Valley of Eternal Light," he explained, hoping the man could help him. The fisherman studied the map for a moment, then shook his head. "The path ahead is dangerous. Many have tried and failed. But if you truly wish to cross, I can take you. However, there is a price." Muntu, now penniless, looked at the fisherman helplessly. "I have nothing to offer you," he admitted. The fisherman smiled kindly. "Not all prices are paid in gold, my friend. I ask for something different, your story. Tell me why you seek this treasure, and what you will do if you find it." Muntu hesitated, then began to tell the fisherman everything. He spoke of his greed, his downfall, and his regret. He spoke of the villagers he had wronged and the wisdom he had gained too late. As he spoke, he felt a weight lifting from his shoulders, as if each word was a step towards redemption. When he finished, the fisherman nodded thoughtfully. "You have learned much on your journey, Muntu. The path ahead will test you further, but remember this: the true treasure is not in what you seek, but in what you become. Now, let us cross this river." With that, the fisherman led Muntu to a small, hidden boat. Together, they crossed the raging river, the old man's steady hands guiding them safely to the other side. As Muntu stepped onto the opposite bank, he turned to thank the fisherman, but the man was already gone, leaving only the sound of the rushing water behind. Muntu continued his journey, his heart now lighter, but the challenges ahead would only grow more difficult. The hidden valley was close, but Muntu was beginning to wonder if the real test wasn't in finding the treasure, but in finding himself. As he ventured deeper into the mountains, the landscape grew stranger. The trees were taller, their leaves shimmering with a golden hue, and the air was thick with a sweet, intoxicating scent. Muntu knew he was nearing the Valley of Eternal Light, but something in the air made him uneasy. The sun was setting, yet the light did not fade. Instead, the sky remained a brilliant orange, as if frozen in a perpetual twilight. The path ahead was lined with peculiar statues, figures of men and women, all frozen in various poses, their expressions a mix of awe, fear, and despair. Muntu realized with a shiver that these were not ordinary statues, but people who had been turned to stone. Was this the fate that awaited him? As King Muntu ventured deeper into the strange, shimmering forest, he could feel the weight of the statues' gazes upon him. The eerie silence of the place unnerved him, but he pressed on, driven by a mix of curiosity and fear. He knew he was close to the Valley of Eternal Light, but the closer he got, the more he wondered what awaited him there. Finally, he emerged from the forest into a wide, open clearing. In the center stood a magnificent tree, its leaves glowing with a golden light that bathed the entire valley in warmth. The sun hung low in the sky, never setting, casting everything in an eternal twilight. At the base of the tree was a large stone altar, and on it rested a single object, a simple, unadorned wooden bowl. Muntu approached the bowl cautiously, expecting to find riches or treasures of unimaginable value. But when he peered inside, he found only a few drops of clear water. Confused, he looked around, hoping for some sign, some explanation for what he was supposed to do. Then, from behind the tree, the old fisherman appeared once more. "You have found the valley, King Muntu," he said, his voice soft yet firm. "But do you understand what you have found?" Muntu shook his head. "I sought treasure, but all I find is this empty bowl." "Is this some kind of trick?" The fisherman smiled gently. "This is no trick. The true treasure was never in gold or jewels. The water in this bowl represents life itself, the essence of what you once took from your people. You see, the journey you undertook was not to find more wealth, but to learn the value of what you already had." Muntu stared at the bowl, realization dawning on him. "I was blinded by greed," he whispered. "I took and took, never understanding that true wealth is in giving, in sharing what you have." The fisherman nodded. "And now you have a choice. You can take this bowl, a symbol of the life you can bring back to your people, and return to Kibungo to lead them with wisdom and kindness. Or, you can choose to stay here, in this valley, where time stands still, and live in solitude with nothing but your regrets." Muntu thought long and hard. He remembered the faces of the villagers, the joy on their faces when he had finally shared his wealth, and the warmth he had felt in his heart, a warmth he had never known before. He knew what he had to do. "I will return to my people," he said firmly. "I will use what I have learned to make Kibungo a place of prosperity and kindness, where no one goes without, and everyone thrives." The fisherman smiled, and as he did, the light in the valley grew even brighter. "Then you have found the true treasure, Muntu. Go, and may your reign be one of wisdom and generosity." With that, the fisherman vanished, leaving Muntu alone in the valley. He carefully picked up the wooden bowl, feeling its weight in his hands, and began the long journey back to Kibungo. When he finally returned to the village, the people were surprised to see him. They had heard of his journey and had feared he would never return. But Muntu was different now, no longer the greedy king they had known, but a humble leader who had learned the value of giving. He used the bowl as a symbol, reminding himself and his people every day that true wealth was not in hoarding riches but in sharing them. Under his new rule, Kibungo flourished, and the villagers lived in peace and prosperity. Moral: true wealth is not measured by what you possess, but by what you give. It is in the act of sharing and lifting others that one finds the greatest treasure of all.